Solo, a Star Wars story, is directed by Ron Howard and stars Alden Ehrenreich, Emilia Clarke, Donald Glover, Joonas Suotamo, Woody Harrelson, Jon Favreau, Paul Bettany, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and of course, Clint Howard. And this is the movie that tells the origins of Han Solo, how Han and Chewbacca met, how Han and Donald Glover's character Lando Calrissian met, pretty much his origins, his possible introduction to Jabba the Hutt, and yes, we even learned the origin of where Han Solo got his last name. More on that in a little bit. So let's first talk about the production design of this movie. I gotta say, it's gorgeous. I can honestly see this movie being nominated for the Academy Award for costume design, set design, and possibly visual effects because I think they all work together really well. I think the costume design is really noticeable. I think it is possibly even very standout from the rest of the Star Wars films. I was very impressed with the costumes and also very impressed with the production design as well. The sets looked incredible. There was a lot of use of practical effects. This movie, although it did utilize CGI, and I felt like it utilized it really well, it also did introduce a lot of practical effects, which it seems like these most recent Disney Star Wars films have been doing really well by utilizing those type of effects. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the acting. Recasting Harrison Ford's Han Solo is kind of a suicide mission in a way because whoever steps into the role, it's kind of make or break for the career. So, and it's just really hard because normally you don't redo something so iconic, but they did do it this movie. So did they do well? I believe they did really well with the casting of this movie. Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo is likable. I would have liked to have seen him to be a little more charming, a little bit more devilish and charismatic, but I believe he will grow into that eventually. Right now, this is still a different Han Solo than what we come to know in episode 4, 5, and 6 and beyond. He is playing it a little more reserved, I would say, but he still seems to have fun on the screen. I've come to accept him as the new Han Solo. As I was watching the movie, I felt he did a fine job, and I enjoyed seeing him on screen, and I am looking forward to seeing what more he can bring to the role. I think he does have the potential to bring a lot more and then tie it closer to that Harrison Ford Han Solo. Now, as for the rest of the cast, I think everybody just did fine. This is just a fine acting job. I would say the standout is Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. He sounded a lot like Billy D. Williams' character from episode 5. He still kind of had that same gravitas, which I really enjoyed. He had a lot of fun with the role. I was incredibly impressed with Donald Glover's performance. I would say he's the standout. Woody Harrelson is an Oscar-nominated actor. I thought he did fine. He just was kind of playing Woody Harrelson like he seems to mostly do. But like I said, he did fine along with everybody else. I didn't really care for Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character K3. I know in Rogue One, K2SO was a really big deal, and I did really enjoy K2SO in that movie, and I did feel that connection. I didn't really feel a connection with the character of L3 in this movie. Also, I was really disappointed that Jon Favreau's animated character, he wasn't in the movie as much as I wished it would have been because that was a really likable character. So not bringing him throughout the rest of the movie, I feel like that was kind of a mistake. But they did kind of pare down the characters to just the essentials, which made sense with following this story. Now let's talk about the story. The story is incredibly basic and incredibly simple. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing because there are other movies where it can get so confounding and befuddled with the story that you can't even follow it and it's just not a nice experience whatsoever. This movie was incredibly easy to follow. It pretty much centered around everybody coming together, putting together this team that we'll come to know later on in the future, and they have to steal this hyperfuel coaxium for this gangster or else they'll be killed, essentially. So that's basically the entire premise of the movie. And like I said, it's very easy to follow, but it's very simple. They didn't take a lot of risks with this story. In the end of this movie, you can tell they are setting it up for more sequels, which I think will have higher stakes because otherwise there wasn't a whole lot going on with this movie. The villain in this movie is fairly absent for the most part and just kind of weak. Paul Bettany just does a fine job, but like I said, kind of a weak character and a pretty weak villain. So some of the frustrations that I did have with the movie was it trying to explain almost everything about Han Solo and his past, including his name. I won't tell you how he got his name because this is a spoiler-free review, but to me, it's just why did we have to go there? It seemed like it was kind of cribbing off Godfather Part 2, that's as much as I'll say. But why did we need to know that was how he got his last name? It just is going too far and over explaining too much. And this is kind of the danger of origin stories or prequels, where they will over explain everything, things you wanted to stay a mystery, things you never even cared about, and things you just really didn't want to know. So aside from that kind of nitpick of him getting his name, I think it all does a decent job. I'm pretty much okay with how everybody came together. I don't really know how they could make it any better. The one thing I was a little disappointed with was it does show the infamous Kessel Run that you hear about in episode 4. And I was expecting something more thrilling than this because the Kessel Run was actually a bit of a slow sequence. It did have its intense moments, but then there's a point where it's like, oh, okay. So when he does complete the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, that's a unit of distance, not a unit of time. So it wasn't as intense that I would have liked. Also, I felt this movie was too long. It didn't need to be almost 2.5 hours long. So especially the end of the second act and into the third act, they really needed to wrap things up. I found myself wanting things to move along because this basic plot was hyper extended. So, other than those things, I think this is a movie the whole family can enjoy. I found it to be kind of nice that they did pare it down to a simpler story because most Star Wars movies are grandiose and massive, especially its predecessor, Rogue One. That was also a Star Wars story that was fairly large in scale. This movie doesn't do much in the way of surprises, although there is a really big surprise at the end that I was visibly excited about in the theater, and I could tell some other people in my row and around the theater there were some gasps and some questioning and a lot of excitement, so I'm really hoping they will take that and pick that up with a sequel. So overall, I'm giving Solo: A Star Wars Story 7 stars out of 10 with a solid recommend. So I definitely recommend you go check it out in the theater. I think you'll have a really fun time, especially when you go see it with family and friends. So thank you for watching this spoiler-free review. Alan and I also did a spoiler-filled podcast review for Solo where we discuss all the juicy spoilers that I know you're dying to talk about. So you can go ahead and click on that over here. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. Don't forget to hit subscribe because we're going to be bringing you a ton of more great content. And we are also going to be rolling out a Patreon system. We'll be giving you a lot of exclusive content that I don't think you guys are going to want to miss. So more details on that are forthcoming. But like I said, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out any details. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And you could also follow us through email if you like. So once again, thanks for watching. Catch you next time.